Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Hindustan Aeronautics Limited Q2 H1 FY22 earnings conference call hosted by ICICI Securities Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal the operator by pressing star then zero on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Abhijit Mitra from ICICI Securities Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thanks, operator, and good afternoon to all the participants. Thanks for joining in. We are here to discuss H1 results as well as business updates of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. We have from the management with us Shri R. Madhavan, Chairman and Managing Director, Shri C.B. Ananthakrishnan, Director of Finance and CFO, and Shri M.S. Velpari, Director Operations. So without further ado, I hand it over to Mr. Madhavan for his opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Madhavan, CMD of HAL, and I got with me Mr. Ananthakrishnan, the CFO of the company, and Director Operations, Mr. Velpari. So here we are here to discuss the H1 results of HAL. So I will be pleased to announce that we have got a revenue from operations of more than 7,167 crores, which is more than 9% over the last year-on-year. And the earnings also has gone up. Earnings per share has gone up by 37%. And we have done well as far as receivables from our customers are concerned. And the profitability, that is the profit after tax, has also increased by around 37% in the first half of the year to 1,047 crores from 765 crores last year. On the operations front, I would like to say that we just had a handing over ceremony of LCH to the Indian Air Force by the Prime Minister of India. And during the last quarter, we had signed quite a few MOUs, and especially the one with the Aeronautical Development Agency, that is ADA of DRDO, where we are actively participating in the design and development of AMCA. And then we also have got the MOUs with some foreign OEMs for getting into the green energy part of it. And we have got signed an MOU with Rolls-Royce in the last quarter for the supply of and support of Adour engines worldwide from HAL in Bangalore. So, and we also had other achievements like ALH Mark III for the Coast Guard, which has come into picture. And we also signed a lease agreement with Alliance Air for operating the Dorniers in the Udan scheme from Arunachal Pradesh. So these are a few of the things that we have gotten. We have got a good lead for exports, especially from Philippines as of now. We are also in the lead as far as the RFQ for Malaysian Air Force LCAs are concerned, though it has yet a long way to go for finalizing of that. And we also have a contract with the Mauritius police as of now for new passenger variant of the Dornier. So this is the operations immediately of what happened in the last quarter or a half year. And going forward, our order book still continues to be good, and it looks that we will be reaching a better figure by the end of this financial year. And we will, as far as the revenues are concerned, as we have told earlier, we will be improving on what was last year's revenue of 22,745. So this is the basic achievements and what we have gotten up to H1. And we also have seen that what we were facing the problem because of COVID in the first quarter has now been behind us. So we have made good whatever we had lost in the first quarter. And the second quarter, as you can see from the results, has improved over the last year's H1. So that's how it is. So any further questions, I think we can answer as we go. So we are ready to take the questions from you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin with the question and answer session. Anyone wishing to ask a question may please press star and 1 on your touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is on the line of Pritesh Chheda from Lucky Investments. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. Sir, there is a big change in the working capital cycle that we see. Some time back, we had debt on the balance sheet because of lower advances. And now there is a big swing in terms of lower receivable as well as the better advances. So if you would comment on, how do you see the working capital cycle playing out for us and the cash flows playing out for us? So that's one question. And second, out of the backlog that we have, amongst the key orders that are supposed to be getting executed over the next couple of years, if you could identify those orders at least, so it becomes easier for us to track and monitor the progress.
Yeah, as far as the cash balance is concerned, that is the working capital associated. As it stands after the second quarter, it is 13,500 crores, which was around 7,000 in the first quarter, and this was negative in the last 2 years because of collection problems from the customers. I think that part of it is behind us now, so it will always look positive from here onwards. However, you should understand that part of the collection to the extent of around 5,000 crores plus is because of advances against the 83 LCA order, which will get used for buying materials and equipments for executing that order. So that has to be kept in mind, and advances looks very comfortable as of now. So, and our payment cycle, as you said, there is no cycle as such. There was a depression in the last couple of years because of reasons well known, that there was no money available for payment against what our products and services at that point of time, but that is behind us now. So we should have a good positive cash balance from now onwards. At least in the near future, we don't see any problems in that. The second part of it, as you said, that the orders which are in under execution, the main order that we have to talk about is the 83 LCA, which is supposed to be delivered from the March of 2024. So we are on track for that. We have already placed the major orders with GE, and now with Bell also is going on. So we are on track as far as the material procurement is concerned. The design is also on track, and we are likely to fly the first prototype from middle of next year. That is in 2022 somewhere. So from there onwards, the certification process will take about 1.5 years. So we will be on time for delivery of the first aircraft by March 2024. So others, that smaller programs that we are there with is with the Coast Guard and Navy for the ALHS. There's a version that is for maritime use, and that is going on strong. So we have already started the deliveries to Coast Guard, and it is also attached with a PPL contract with Coast Guard, that is a performance-based logistic contract with them. So this is going on, and the Navy orders is also in line. So there is issues regarding those supplies there is not there, and therefore we are on track on those two orders. We are also looking forward for new fresh orders, or as far as the LCH is concerned, LUH is concerned, and also there are 25 ALHs as well for the helicopter divisions, and a order for Su-30 Mark I for 12 numbers, from which most likely will come in the next financial year.
Just to add to what our CMD has told on the working capital, our payment mechanism is structured in such a way that the milestone payment, the funding requirements are being taken care of by the customers, which would mean that the milestone payments are all well received in advance. So it is literally that the upfront funding by the customer. So there will not be any sort of a borrowing which will add to the financing cost of the product. So that is being avoided. So the payment cycle continues, and the new orders are also structured in such a way that there will be an upfront funding of all the working capital. So the problems which we had earlier will not be there in future.
Okay. So we won't see the repetition of the past cash flow cycle, right?
Yeah, repetition. It is
because
just
it was because it was a negative cash flow cycle for like quite number of years. It was 3-4 years back to back a negative cash flow cycle.
No, 2 years. This started somewhere around middle of 17 when the payments started dropping down, and it ended up somewhere in 2019. 2019 February. So that's the period when we had a crash crunch across all our services also. So that is behind us. And if you look at it, prior to that, we never were in negative, and post 19 also we are not in the negative as far as cash flow.
Okay, so lastly on that key order side, so what kind of revenue visibility do we have for 22 and 23 in terms of revenue getting booked? If you could share that, you would have shared that with the ministry as well.
No, for 22, for the current year 21-22, there may not, we may be on the, we may be in a position to show the growth as compared to the previous year. But for 22-23, as of now, there is a gap. There is when we want to show growth, but there is a gap in our revenue, but which we are trying to fill the gap through the various new orders which we are anticipating, like what we have told that LCH and then LUH and then 12 Sukhoi, which we are likely to finalize it very shortly. And because AON has already been issued, similarly we have got an engine order valued at around 7,000 to 8,000 crores of AL31FP engine, which is used for Sukhoi engine. All these constitute around 25,000 crores of orders. If we expect that these orders to materialize, and the shortfall in the revenue in 22-23, which is at present around 5,000 to 6,000 crores, will be made good through these new orders which we expected to get in the next 6 months.
So clarification, FY22
may we request that you return to the question?
Ma'am, I just clarify for that question if you don't mind. FY22 you said flat, right?
Yeah, 22-23.
We don't see visibility.
Yeah, because that the major order will come in place for execution only in 23-24. And 22-23, the low-hanging fruits are the helicopter orders, that is the LUH, which we are going to start deliveries somewhere around August of next year. And the LCH, which the order, if it comes now, there will be a part of it left. And there is a 25 ALH order, which is from the Army, which will get cleared probably by the middle of next year. And that we can turn around and supply within the next year itself. So if you are working on those so that we make good the gap in the executable orders, which is there for a year. So 23-24 onwards, of course, it's just an increasing path, but 22-23 we are trying to cover this with the existing orders plus increase of the ROH tasks that we have with us.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. All the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Umesh Raut from Dolat Capital Markets. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Congratulations for the good set of numbers for the Q2. Sir, my first question is more of a strategic in nature. So we have first development, one development in the form of signing agreement with Rolls-Royce for Make in India auto engine parts to support the international defense customer base. So just wanted to know how big would be this particular opportunity, and how are we, kind of strategically looking up to cater the international defense customer base going forward?
See, as on now, the opportunity that we have signed with Rolls-Royce is for about rupees 100 crores, which is executable. This is the first major step towards the exports. Further orders would follow. Initially, they have taken a time frame of 2 to 2.5 years, say 2 to 3 years, for the first order to execute. Nevertheless, this being the first lot, the follow-on orders are expected to be higher, and other parts will get add-on, so that the business would further grow.
Okay, got it.
And we have another joint venture with Rolls-Royce here, due to which we would be co-working and improving the numbers, plus the type of components that we'll do would be more part numbers would be there so that the business volumes can grow.
Okay. And apart from Rolls-Royce, are we pursuing any other opportunities in the similar domain?
Yeah, this is we are constantly pursuing. We would be shortly signing off with GE as well for some of the parts. We would, with most of them who are our suppliers, we are trying to go back to them and tell that a percentage of such needs to be initially exported so that it could grow more in numbers in future years. So we are pursuing the leads with GE. We are working with Honeywell. We are working with other sources who are suppliers to us apart from this.
Got it, sir. Sir, my second question is, CMD sir mentioned in the opening remarks that there is an ordering pipeline of around 30,000 crores in next 2 years. So we should expect similar kind of advances what we have received for LCA contract for all these contracts in future also, right?
Yeah, it's about 15% is what we expect in the first, as soon as the signing of contract is done. After that, there's a milestone payment on after the materials have been ordered. So like that, there is a milestone payment available for that.
So all the payments are being, the payment terms are the same as it's defined for HAL, and it is the same for whatever we have signed so far, and it will continue to be the same for future as well.
Okay, sir. Sir, last question is, we have received a very good response during our Dubai Aero Show, our exhibition. So that is where I was trying to gauge the activities or the orders that we can expect apart from Malaysia or Philippines from the export markets in near term or in a medium to longer term.
Yeah, we are looking at certain target countries, and this was the first air show that we really participated in full strength in the Middle East. So we are not showcased our products at that location till now. So we expect that there will be orders placed on us from those areas. Especially we are looking at as our major 3 platforms. That is the helicopters, the Dornier 228, and the LCA. So LCA also we are gunning for certain other countries other than of course Malaysia and the Indian Ocean region countries. So we expect something will come out of these exercises.
Got it, sir. Thank you so much. I'll turn back with you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Faisal Hawa from HG Hawa & Co. Please go ahead.
R&D spend for this financial year, and what is the budget for the next year? And what are we doing to make the culture of our organization more agile and faster to really bag more international orders and also take advantage of the defense offsets that may be coming towards us?
So as far as R&D spend is concerned, normally we spend around 6 to 7% of our revenue. In fact, last year we have been, our spending has been in the order of around 1,500 crores, and this year we expect it to go up around 1,600 crores. So which is roughly translate into around 7% of our revenue generation, and this we will continue for the future as well. Suppose in case if some new major projects are coming through, and if it is through customer funding is sanctions are going to be there, this R&D spend may increase. But as of now, we foresee a R&D spend of around 1,600 crores, which is around 6 to 7% of our revenue. That is on the R&D spend. What was your second question?
What is that your comment? I should have seen
to improve the culture of the organization, because finally we are a government-run organization, and that culture often runs into the veins of the organization.
Yeah, the culture, the main thing that we would concentrate now is deliveries. One is which we did have certain feedback on faster deliveries. That is one. Quality, lots of initiatives are being taken, and there is lots of change in that which is getting appreciated from the customers. As far as deliveries is concerned, which was the last concern which they expressed, you would have seen from the last year, we have delivered the largest tankage to ISRO, to the VSSC, that is the space mission. You could imagine an item which has to take about 8 to 9 months of manufacturing lead cycle time. we took advance action so that with a letter of intent that they are going to take, we never waited for that time. Our board was kind enough to sanction, to go ahead, take some risks and move forward. So we could deliver such a tankage within the second day of the order, literally the order. Same was the culture that was practiced for the recent LCH order, which we had signaled out 3 numbers in the last financial year, and we have planned for 6 numbers this year. Till date, we have taken a letter of intent and with the approval of the board, with some amount of risk, because there is an intent to take, we have gone ahead. So towards deliveries, our culture has totally changed, not to wait, because the lead cycle time being more, they have taken that proactive measure, so that delivery is constantly getting pushed. Our cost, other parameter cost gets addressed right in the front, because being a nomination order, our books are open and the government auditors has the access to see during the price fixation. So that when the price is fixed, we are giving the best cost to the customer. So the cost is assured to him. Now the delivery is also assured to him, and this will be our way of work in the years to come, and we would constantly be improving on all these 3 aspects.
Now, to add to that, things. One is the productivity improvement that is basically seen in terms of the wage bill as against our revenues. That you are trying to bring it constantly down, and you can see that it has come down from more 23%, which was about 3 years back. 2018, I think was that, and then today it is at around 19%, and we are constantly bringing down with a target of around 16%, which is the best of the industry average, so industry numbers. So that is what we are looking at it. At the same time, other than efficient production, we are also bringing in other sources, so that most of my now the manufacturing activities are outsourced. So to an extent, we are bringing out the cost component there. As a benchmark, if you look at it, even for the export orders, when you are exporting against an open tender from global OEMs, if you look at the one that we bid against the Malaysian order, our price was the lowest as far as all the technological requirements of the customer being met. There are some who have not met the conditions are lower, but when you meet all the requirements of this customer, we were the lowest. So that means that internationally also our prices are in line. And as our direct operation was telling, the deliveries are in line, not only in line, in many cases we are doing it ahead of schedule. In fact, even for LCH, even though the order is not there, the products are ready for delivery. So that's because now we are not waiting like earlier, as a common concern, we used to wait for the order to come for ordering of the material and all those things. We are taking a proactive step that we start the activities before the order is placed. Once the letter of intent is given to us, and we are sure that it is going to come. So the board takes a decision to buy the material ahead of schedule, and we start the manufacturing activity. So to a large extent, we have brought down that cultural change has come in with
In addition, even in that R&D activities, earlier the practice used to be that the sanction used to come from the customer for the particular type of R&D, design and development of the aircraft platform, aircraft or whatever that LRUs, and subsequently we used to start our activities. But today, even in R&D activity, we are upfront funding the R&D wherever we see some visibility of the product and where we foresee that the customer is going to come through that. We don't wait for the customer to give us the sanction. We start funding our own, rather from our own funding, we start the R&D activities. And that is how one classic example has been that HTT-40, that trainer aircraft which we have developed with our own funding. We did not wait, and now the order is going to come through. So these are all certain major changes which were a cultural shift in the organizational approach, which has happened in the last 3 to 4 years, which is now yielding fruits, both on the production front as well as from the R&D front. And apart from that, on the pricing front also, our prices, we are now working towards a target prices for all the products, and not, they're like the earlier way of cost plus profit. So these are all certain major issues which has been resulting in some of the positives for the company in the current.
Sir, in fact, I just squeeze in the last question. Where would we be in the pecking order of aircraft manufacturers in the world? Where would we stand in the ranking? And secondly, what are our chances are in getting orders from space segments of various countries and private companies?
See, if you ask, there are two segments, one on the aerospace aircraft side, aircraft and helicopter side, other on the space side. As you are seeing, the space in the internal market is fully with us. Space being so much of a protected industry and all that as on today, no doubt it is getting privatized. Even in India, you would see that privatizing to happen to some extent, in which we will also be there as one of the partners there. We should make foray into space area abroad. As on now, it is nil. Hope it picks up. As on now, I should accept with you, it has not just started in our kitty. As far as aircraft and helicopters are concerned, our marketing efforts are very aggressive, and as my CMD said, they have already been in the lead position in one of the latest aircraft with Malaysian Air Force. Hopefully, we should be able to make good progress in that. Apart from that, we have got good leads in the helicopter market as well, for which our RFQs are been given already, and we are getting evaluated, and chances are very high. See, the numbers initially has to pick up in the Indian market, and it has to be an indigenous product. LCA and ALH are the indigenous product where we have the rights of IPR fully with us, where we can export to the customer and we can give to the outside customer what he wants. Of course, there would be certain permissions on the LRUs, which most likely with the friendly nations, which will be given. Under that, assuming that we are going all out to promote exports of aircraft and helicopter, we have started seeing success. Hopefully, we'll convert this into order, and that would start growing first. Later, we should see into the space program as well. But as of now, space program has not yet started towards exports. We are catering to the complete requirements of our country.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Harshit Patel from Equirus Securities. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Patel. We are not able to hear you.
Hello, is it audible?
Sir, you're sounding very soft.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Sir, my first question was on Dornier 228. So, sir, what are the total numbers that we have produced so far? What is our existing order book of that particular platform? And what kind of potential you see on the civil operations for that particular variant? And sir, you have also mentioned in your presentation about mid-life upgrade program of the Indian Navy. So, sir, what could be the potential order size over there? That will be my first question.
See, we have produced around 150 Dorniers as of now. So our capacities as of now, it is for about 8 aircraft per year. And in the civil market, we expect order book of around 40 to 50 aircraft in the initial phase, depending on how well the Udan scheme takes off. So keeping that in mind, 2 of them that we have produced earlier had been given for the Alliance Air to operate on lease from us in Arunachal Pradesh. We expect more orders from the northeastern states to begin with, and states like Uttar Pradesh and Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand areas to come in future. So keeping that in mind, we have already started the production of another 7 for the year. So that will also be available. It has a good export potential because now the Dornier 228, the IPR that is now we are converted into an Hindustan 228, the IPR lies with us now for that. So we are now planning to export those. Again, there are a lot of countries where we feel that this aircraft will be in demand. So we expect another 40 to 50 numbers from that. Exports. So this is the basic numbers that we are talking about. As far as mid-life upgrade is concerned, it is the Navy. A similar one is there for Coast Guard also, which is going to come up later. So that will be also available. And then there is an IAF order for upgrade for 40 numbers, which is a smaller number of around 700 crores.
Okay, sure. Understood, sir. Thank you very much for such detailed numbers, sir. Sir, my next question would be on the execution of the old Tejas contract. So, sir, you had earlier mentioned that we were supposed to complete the FOC execution in FY22. So, sir, are we on track on that front?
Yeah, we are finishing off that remaining 10 numbers this year. So as far as FOC contract part of it is over, then we are left with 8 trainers. Both of them will be to the FOC standard only, but the trainers, the drawings are still being finalized by the ADA. This one for the front fuselage. So once it comes in, we plan to do it next year. Preferably, we will try to keep a few aircrafts to carry forward to the next year, so the line is in operation till we start the fresh Mark 1A 83 contract. So next year we plan around 4 to 6 aircrafts, and maybe 1 or 2 aircrafts will retain, though, to keep the lines in operation. So this year we will finish up the FOC. The trainers only will be left with us now.
Understood, sir. And sir, just my last question on the ALH. So, sir, you had mentioned that at the end of financial year 21, there were 36 numbers left in the unexecuted order book. So, sir, what would be that number right now, and by when we will complete the entire execution of ALH?
Yeah, that is 36 was partly because of the Air Navy and Coast Guard. There were 16 and 16 numbers. Now we have got left, just 1 second. We have got 20 left out of that, out of the 32. And there are a few 8 numbers left for the Army. So that's about what we are left got. That means 28 in our hand.
So, sir, this will be entirely completed in FY23, or it will stretch to 24 as well?
No, in 23 it should get completed.
Right. Bulk would get completed this year, and the spillover would get completed to the next year, but we'll try to add some more numbers to the Army probably.
So Army, the 25 numbers should take up before that ends. So 2024 onwards, we will be onto that Army 25, and Air Force is also looking out for some more numbers. So that line will continue to be there.
Okay, understood, sir. Thank you very much, sir. That was all from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is on the line of Kirti Jain from Canara HSBC Oriental Bank. Please go ahead.
So my question is with regard to drone systems, what are the things we are doing, and what is the business we can develop in drone solution, and drone also defense and civilian drones also, what we are trying to do. If you can guide, that would be great, sir.
Yeah, in drones there are 2 varieties to be precise. One is on the fixed wing side and one is on the rotary wing side. We have 3 opportunity types of collaborations or our own designs on that. To start with, there is a collaboration with the Israeli company for the rotary wing 2000 kg one. Of course, all the drones that we are now planning are in the military use. The second one is that we have our own R&D going on for a 200 kg one, which has a payload around 40 kgs. So these are all because we are not into small drones, so we are going into medium and large drones. Third is another MOU signed with the Israeli company for the fixed wing drones, which will be planned in Nashik for manufacture. Then there is one with DRDO, which is taking shape now. So that again in the fixed wing side. So these are the drones that we are into. Other than that, we have got a CAT system, which is based on mostly on drones and basically swarm drones and unmanned vehicles, what we call it as wingmen. So that is another area that we are putting our efforts into in the drone areas. We are not basically into the civil drone market, which is we feel that it can be serviced by smaller companies and startups. So it doesn't make sense for us to get into that area, and it is getting quite congested in that area especially. So we don't want to get into smaller drones. So we are into mostly into military and high technology drones, where it is used for basically for military purposes or for other civil purposes, like for disaster relief, your geological survey, and that kind of payloads.
Sure, sir. Sir, but when these things can get commercialized, and like when will defense allocate orders for these things, sir?
See, it is in development. So the first one, that is a 200 kg with a 40 kg payload, which is basically of use for the armed services, and even it can be used for civil purposes, is getting ready, and most probably by the middle of third quarter of next year, it will have its first flight. So since this is a drone, the certification process is a bit faster than the manned aircraft. So we expect that it should be in service in 23-24.
Sure, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to ensure that the management is able to address questions from all participants in this conference, we request you to limit your questions to 2 per participant only. The next question is from the line of Abhijit Mitra from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yes, thanks for taking my question. My question is more on the revenue guidance front, which I missed. So on 2023, FY 22-23, you said 5,000 to 6,000 crore shortfall related to what? What was the benchmark? Was the benchmark 5 to 6% revenue growth YOY and then 5,000 to 6,000 crore shortfall on that, or what exactly was the benchmark? Sorry.
Precisely. We are expecting that we should grow at least that numbers. So our previous CAGR for growth was around 6.35%. So keeping that as my extrapolated benchmark, from there we were looking at a shortfall about 5,000 crores below. But that is not including what are the other revenues that we can target to make good that deficiency. So that is what my Anand Krishnan was telling about. So let him clarify that part of it.
Okay.
This revenue, the shortfall is after consider the revenue which we will be able to generate is based on the firm. The shortfall will be made good through certain anticipated orders which we have discussed earlier. This 5,000 to 6,000 crores is assuming a revenue growth. What has been the pattern in the past, that is 5 to 6% minimum. So with that if we are going to target a 5 to 6% growth for 22-23, there is a shortfall of around 5,000 to 6,000 crores.
Okay. And for 22, that number is flat. I mean, you are saying it's not 5 to 6%, but it's flat. That's what you said, or
No. For you are talking about 21-22 or 22-23?
21-22.
21-22, we will continue whatever has been the past performance growth and which we have been showing. We will continue to show the growth.
Okay.
21-22 should not be an issue. Issue is only on the next year, where is a dip in the executable orders next year. So that is a short term.
Around 6% growth for 22 and possible 6% growth for 23 as well. If that shortfall is made up.
We will target that.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ramakrishna from Zenith Wealth Management Services. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. I have a couple of questions. So I was trying to understand your raw material procurement policy. I mean, can you please help me? I mean, how do you actually structure the pricing with your customers and address the commodity inflation in terms of medium-term and long-term perspective? That is my first question. And the second question is, in your introductory remarks, you have mentioned that you got into some foreign OEM tie-ups, to get into green energy related products. If you can please elaborate on that one also. And finally, third question is, across your segments of revenue like manufacturing, ROH, development and others and exports, what is the tentative margin profile? If you can please help me understand on this.
Yes.
That is because it's complicated. One is regarding procurement of material.
On the procurement policy, you are asking questions as to how we are managing our procurements. So normally what happens is that our process starts from the orders which we are anticipating to receive from the customer. the customer normally, wherever the manufacturing contracts are signed, the visibility is very clear what will be based on the delivery schedule. We will start provisioning the material so that the material will be available whenever it is required during the manufacturing cycle. For the repair and overhaul and for the supply of spares, normally the customer gives us a firm task for 1 year and a forecast task for the next 4 years, which means that on an average around 5 years task is available to us. However, we go ahead and start our provisioning for firm task of 1 year and 2 years of forecast task. So every year we will keep reviewing based on the induction which is happening, and we will keep revising our requirement of raw material. The need, what should be the provisioning which should be made. So based on that, the material required for repair and overhaul is provisioned, and for manufacturing contract based on the delivery schedule it is being provisioned, and depending on the cycle time of lead time of procurement from the various vendors, because it will again vary from vendor to vendor. We have got a supply. We have worked out a supply chain continuous flow of material. So we work it out, and then based on that we go ahead and start procuring the material, so that we will optimize the inventory, so that the inventory will not get accumulated at any point of time, but we will keep as and when there is a need, we will position the inventory at least 6 months in advance of the requirement. This has been the plan which has been done. In fact, last 3 years we have been very closely monitoring the inventory pattern as well. So that if you would have observed, the inventory levels which were somewhere around 450 to 460 days on an average, because of certain measures which we have taken in the last 2 to 3 years, today's inventory stands at around 270 days. And 270 days we feel it is more or less the optimum level which we had achieved. Maybe another 10-15 days we will be able to reduce, but nothing much beyond this, because we need at least this much of material to continue to maintain uninterrupted supply chain and uninterrupted operations. So this is on the provisioning part of it and the procurement part of it. And then the second question, if I may understand, that tentative revenue.
No, you mentioned that you got into tie-ups with foreign OEMs to get into green energy products, right?
Yeah.
Just if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah. See, little bit of introduction to that subject. When we are operating our aircraft based on petroleum-based fuels, that is fossil fuels. So that in the worldwide, that is considered as now that we need to go into alternate fuels. There are 2 varieties or 3 varieties that is the possibilities in that. One is to blend the present fuel, that is ATF, which is nothing but kerosene. In that, a blending of certain other plant-based fuel can be added. That is the simplest and the fastest route, and most of the engines can take that directly without much of a change. Though that doesn't give a satisfactory result to the extent that our carbon footprint doesn't really reduce much. So the second part of it is to go through let us say a sustainable alternate fuel, that is SAF, what we call it. That is the green fuel that we are looking at. And the third, of course, is a total electrical drive, which as of now there is not enough of technology as far as storage of electricity is concerned in terms of battery storage. It is not really matured as of now. And this also we are getting into, in the sense that our HAPS, that is a high altitude solar satellite that we are doing, is based on direct from energy from the sun. That is, we are using solar energy and stored in batteries. For these kind of small drones it is possible, but for larger aircrafts, battery technology as of now is not there. Of course, there is one method that is called a hybrid technology, that is a turbine driving electrical generator, which finally provides the power to the propellers. That is in between called a hybrid technology. Let us come back to the SAF, that is a sustainable alternate fuel. We have got into an American company, along with an American company, and MOU is being signed with them for converting one of our Dornier engines to a hydrogen fueled engine. This, as you understand, that this technology as of now nobody has started really using it in service. Everybody is in the process of R&D, so we are also there doing the R&D on this kind of fuels. And once it is done, we will be able to operate the aircraft through hydrogen fuel cells. So that is one way of doing it. Alternatively, we are also trying to convert the existing engine to a land-based engine where we don't need to really certify for the to safety standards. So on a land-based engine, we are trying to convert the existing engine with hydrogen fuel, so that we can convert that into power generation points with hydrogen. So this is the areas that we are looking into as R&D ventures into the alternate fuels that we are having.
Yeah, your third part of your question was on the margins which are there for the repair and overall and for manufacturing, which may come up in future. As you are aware, there is already a profit policy with, as far as the government, the defense customers are concerned, the profit policy is well defined. In case of all the manufacturing contracts, which we call as platform sales, which is the aircraft sales, the margins now it has been reduced from 10% to 7.5%. So that has been the margin which has been built into the contracts which got signed very recently, including the 83 LCA contract, and that is going to be the same for future contracts as well. But as far as the repair and overall activity and the supply of spares and other activities post sale of the aircraft, it continues to be at 10%. But in spite, the earlier one, margins for the manufacturing contracts also were at 10%. But even though it was at 10%, we were able to generate an operating profit of around 16% because of certain in-house cost reduction measures which we have adapted to. Now this reduction of 2.5% only in respect of manufacturing contract, given this present percentage of a ratio of manufacturing to repair and overall, which is around 50%, it will translate into a net impact of around 1.25%. We have already on the total turnover as such. So we have already initiated measures to see how to make good this 1.25% and to see that the operating profit is not only retained, but also we continue to show a growth on the operating profit percentage as well. The measures include one on the material front, where we have started negotiating hard with our vendors, giving them a long-term visibility so that we get a better pricing mechanism from them. The strategy has already started working, and we have got a good amount of reduction with our vendor from whom we have been buying earlier. We have negotiated the prices. Similarly, on the labor cost, we have started rationalizing the standard man hours with our talks with the unions, so that the labor cost will keep coming down, and that has also been reflected in the 83 LCA contract which we had signed. What we have got hours in the earlier orders and hours which has been given for us in the current orders is it has been rationalized, and we expect that with the subsequent production, with the learning curve benefits also will be available to us, so that we will continue to reduce our labor hours and the labor cost will continue to reduce. Added to that, the overhead cost, which constitutes another bulk of our cost, though there also we have introduced various austerity measures to see that the reduction in cost is achieved. At least our target as of today, we are targeting around 300 to 400 crores of reduction overall in the next 1 or 2 years. And we are confident that with the already implemented measures, we will be in a position to achieve that sort of a reduction. So as our CMD earlier had told, the manpower cost also has been continuously reducing from a high of around 26%, 23% 3 years back, and in fact it was as high as 25% during 2015-16. So it has now come 90 by other one more percentage in the near future, and maybe the ultimate target of 16% will be able to meet. So with all these measures, even though there is a pressure on the margins as far as the manufacturing contracts is concerned, we will be able to make good the shortfall of 1.5% with all these cost reduction measures and continue to show a growth in the operating profit.
Thank you, sir. This is really helpful. Can I ask one last question, if you don't mind, operator?
Yes, sir.
So, sir, just trying to understand in terms of a broader picture, 3 years or 5 years down the line, what could be your breakup of overall revenues between private sector and public sector? I mean, now that most of the things are from PSU sector, but given the fact that you have been tying up with some of these private sector companies and trying to getting into that segment, what is your internal thought process in terms of next 3 years, 5 years? What is likely to be the breakup between public sector and private sector?
See, to answer that question, basically, if you look at it from the defense part of the capital procurement, we have a share of around 35 to 40%. Around 40% is what it is there. We'll try to maintain the same share. And as far as the private entities are concerned, they are definitely coming into the game. So, and we are hoping that they will also come, because that gives us a good broad base for our vendors also. As of now, immediately within 5 years, the visibility is not there, but probably after that it will come in. So as of now, for the next 5 years, because the area that we are operating in, there is nobody in. That is helicopters and fighter aircrafts, basically, and small transports, and these areas, really nobody is there as of now. But down the line, yes, we expect that somebody will come in, and the percentage of our share of the market, we don't see that it will drop much. But at the same time, we are looking at broad-basing our customers. We will not be looking at only the defense customers. So we are now changing our policies and our strategies to get into civil areas, civil MROs, and exports in a larger way. So this are both us as well as the private sectors who are coming up in this one will have enough a big market. The pie is big enough for all of us to survive on that. So we don't expect that to come down. We also don't expect that our share of the defense budget also will be anything lesser than what we are having now.
It may come down, that will be taken by.
Yeah. So only this one is about probably the defense budget also is increasing at a faster rate as of now, because everybody has realized that capital procurement and modernization of the armed forces is necessary. So in the next few years, that is 5 years time frame that you have been talking about, there is a growth in the market, and therefore we will not face much problems. But we'll have to ensure that we are up and running at the time when the others come into the picture, when larger numbers. And that is what we are targeting, because our production capacities have now increased, and we are still increasing it. In fact, in helicopters, it's a threefold growth, because we are expecting that the helicopter market will really boom after maybe about 5 to 7 years, especially with the helicopters being placed for civil use. Similarly, we are increasing the capacities for the fighter aircrafts. LCS is one example with us. So, and ROH, that is where we are also strong on. So ROH, of course, is dependent on all the platforms that we have already sold. So this will not go anywhere then except that coming to us. So we don't see much of a problem in the near future, but for the long term, we are already changing our strategies so that we are making good probably the split in the market between us and the private sector.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is on the line of Sachin Manyar from InCred Research. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. So my first question is, can you give what is the timeline for Sukhoi order? When you expect this order and when this execution could start after ordering? And my second question is, you have talk about this capacity. There are multiple helicopters orders of LUH, LCH, HTT-40, and ALH. So can you give what is the current capacity for this, for individual this thing, and how we can ramp up this? And third, my question is on the ROH front. We have seen a strong growth in last few years in ROH. How do you see growth going on next 2 to 3 years for ROH revenues? These are the main three questions.
Yeah. Coming to
12
Su-30 order, we have got the AON. We are in the process of negotiating the price with the Russians and the customer. So hopefully we should get this through by middle of next year. That is somewhere around June, July, or earlier. So that is our hope. I'm sure we will be able to meet, provided the government gives the order by that time. In which case, the deliveries are supposed to be, in fact, 36 months from T0, but we are trying to bring it down to 28 months from T0. So the T0 is the date of order placement. So that is the timeline for the Su-30s. A few of them we might be able to give it a bit earlier. We are working on that, but I expect that average time that we have for material procurement, then converting into parts, then sub-assemblies and assemblies, and into the aircraft. So it takes about that time. So we are looking at a time frame around 28 months to 30 months from T0. That is the time frame from Su-30.
Question from the helicopters capacity.
Capacities. Now, as far as the capacities are concerned, we are around 30 helicopters capacity is available with us as of now, though it is not fully loaded as of now. You can see that is the average that we are producing is around 16 aircrafts. So we have a spare capacities available there. On top of that, the Tumkur plant will give you another additional 60 helicopters per year. That is basically in the LUS segment, and that is after the completion of the second phase. After the completion of the first phase of the Tumkur plant, the addition is around 30 more helicopters. So totally we will, after phase 1 is over, we'll get about 60 helicopters. And then between 80 to 90 helicopters we can produce. So the capacities are not a constraint as far as your helicopters are concerned. Keeping in mind at the same time our order books for LUH expected to be around 200. For ALH will be LCH it will be around 150, and ALH will continue to be at the same approximately 14 to 16 helicopters per year. So this is our order book position, possibilities or as far as the helicopters are concerned. Next one coming to STT-40. STT-40 we are planning to make it in after the first few aircraft, we are going to make it in Nasik, where the facilities are available. Since the Su-30 program has come to a close, being a small aircraft, it doesn't make much of a impact as far as the manpower and facility availability at Nasik is concerned. So we can easily make around 20 aircrafts in a year. 15 to 20 aircrafts that is what we are targeting for STT-40.
Your third question was on the ROH percentages year on year. As we earlier said, it would be approximately about in the range of 50% would be ROH, 50% would be manufacturing. But definitely depending upon the manufacturing program maturity and all that, there will be plus minus 10%. When the manufacturing program is more, you will see 60% on manufacturing and 40% on overall. When due to some lead cycle time
Ladies and gentlemen, the line for the management has got disconnected. Please stay connected while we reconnect the management. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for patiently holding. We now have the line for the management reconnected. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I was answering on the question of ROH percentages. Can you hear us? Is it
Yes,
audible?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, we can hear.
ROH percentages, as I said, vary depending on once we have taken a lead on manufacturing percentage will be higher, that is 60%, ROH would be 40. Or when the manufacturing program is tapering down, ROH takes the lead where ROH is 60. So our revenue pattern is 50 plus minus 10. That would be the year-on-year revenue pattern would be there for manufacturing and ROH. And in future, we feel manufacturing would take a lead because of lots of indigenous platforms which have come inside. And this trend would continue. Thank you.
So as far as ROH growth is concerned, that is one of the questions. It is around 10% that you have seen. It will continue to be there in the same fashion.
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. That's my question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is on the line of A.S. Senthil Kumar from Aviva Life Insurance. Please go ahead.
Sir, one question about the order visibility which you have told for 30,000 crores. Does that include the international orders which we have big for across for the Malaysian or the global orders?
No, it is not there like that. What we have done is that what is for sure available as far as AONs are concerned for internal Indian customers, that is only what we are considered. We are considered HTT-40, 70 number, We have considered 2 engine orders for AL31FP, and that is a Su-30 engine, as well as the MiG-29 engine RD-33. That is, both together it is around 10,000 crores. And we have considered the 12 Su-30s, which is around 12,000 crores. And we have considered your 25 ALHs and the immediate order placement of LUH and LCS, not the full numbers, immediate numbers, and the Dornier upgrade. So this is only what we have considered as of now. We are not considered the export market. We are not considered the likelihood of getting larger orders of LUH and LCH, and a further order on the ALHs. So we are not considered those. This is the immediate visibility. What we have said that immediate visibility within a year's time.
Okay. So one more additional question on the existing, the Malaysian thing where we have bidded. What is the current state? When is the project likely to get concluded, and when the announcement will likely?
Technical evaluation as of now there. So we can't say anything about it. We expect that they will finalize it between December and March of next year.
Okay. Okay. Coming back to those Rolls-Royce engine orders, the JV which we have signed up, is it typically to handle over the naval engine side? Is going to be an additional area for us, or how is it going to be? Because typically right now we have the major orders are typically.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Senthil Kumar. So may we request that you return to the question queue? There are participants waiting for their turn.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anna Yagnik from Ace Lansdowne Investments. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, Anna,
Hello.
please go ahead with your question.
Yes.
Madam, your
Sorry
voice
to
is not
interrupt.
audible.
Anna, we're not able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No, ma'am, your voice is breaking up.
Just a second. Hello.
Huh.
Yeah. I just have one question. This cash, which is right now in the balance sheet of 13,500 crores, is it purely our like company cash, or it is like inclusive of the advances from the customers?
It is inclusive of advances.
So what will be the company cash?
Madam, it is like this. The company's reserves and surpluses as of now, it is around 17,000 crores, but which we have deployed it under the various activities. And as of now, the 13,000 crores, what we have received, we cannot strictly classify between company cash and the advances which we have received from the customer, because that advances will also be utilized in the form of procurement of inventories and value addition which we will be doing. And similarly, our reserves and surpluses, a portion of it will remain as cash, but it will also be utilized towards our R&D activities and our other funding activities of capital projects. So we cannot, if you really look at it, there is a 17,000 crore of reserves and surplus, and this 13,000 crores is a mix of both the advances which we have received and a portion of our cash.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is on the line of Faisal Hawa from H.J. Hawa and Company. Please go ahead. Faisal, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead. As there's no response from the current participant, we'll move on to the next. That is on the line of Harshit Kapadia from Elara Capital. Please go ahead.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity, and congratulations for good set of numbers. So just wanted to understand the multi-role fighter aircraft model, where government is saying that they will be procuring 114 aircraft, and this would be under strategic partnership model. So what is an update on that, and would HAL will be a beneficiary of this model? Where do you see your benefits coming from?
For the 114 contract, we will not like to comment anything on that as of now. The RFQ itself is still pending, so we can't comment on what kind of aircraft they are looking at and when it is going to come. So I think it's too premature for us to comment on that.
Sure, sir. And just continuation on the export side, sir, in one of the media articles, it stated that the Malaysian Air Force is looking to procure 36 number of aircraft, and in one of the interviews, you had mentioned that the cost of these aircraft could be 300 crores per combat aircraft, which is significantly lower than the ordering that we have seen for LCA Tejas Mark II. So where is the difference in terms of price? And secondly, the quantity is correct or not, sir?
See, the quantity for Malaysian Air Force that we have against is 18 with an option for another 18. So the second option is depending on them whether they exercise that option or not. So as far as the first RFQ that they have raised is for 18 numbers. Yes, we are told that it will be around 300 crores and we are sticking to the number. That is the number approximately the same that we have quoted for our own 83 LCA, so it is nothing different from that.
Okay, fair enough, sir. Thank you and all the best, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be taking the last question. That is on the line of A.S. Senthil Kumar from Aviva Life Insurance. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so this is about the Rolls-Royce JV.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Senthil Kumar. Sir, we are not able to hear you clearly.
1 second.
So this is regarding the JV which we have when we start Rolls-Royce. It is going to be for the naval engines because predominantly we are now depending on the global partners for the naval engines. So is this going to be a new vertical for us or is it going to be an existing one is my one question. The other question is in terms of the helicopter, you said the long visibility of pipeline of helicopters order being coming into play. But see, for example, the KA, the Kamo helicopter deal which was envisaged between the government to government is yet to complete. But if that comes through in this coming Mr. Putin visit, can it cannibalize the existing the orders which are likely to come from the local production?
Yeah, there's two questions. First of all, when we talked about the MOU with Rolls-Royce, it was for the Adour engine.
Adour engine, okay.
That is, of course, Navy also operates a part of it. So it's not that Navy is away from that. Mostly it is Air Force. So we have produced around 100 aircrafts. 99 we have supplied to them. So the engine that is going to be there is the same what we are now planning to do. And the same engine is there in all the Hawks that is operating across the world. So that is where we are got into. Of course, we also have other contracts with in line with Rolls-Royce for naval warship engines. That is IMGT division. We do have a vertical already existing doing this job. So making, in fact, the Vikrant that is now being that Vikramaditya. That is, this is powered by HL supplied engines only, LM2500. So that line is already existing, and we are now getting into one more, this one for MT-30 of Rolls-Royce, which is a much more powerful engine, which can be used for high-speed destroyers as well as for next generation of aircraft carriers. So this is also a part of the deal that we are having, a MOU that we are going to have with Rolls-Royce. So these are the two things on the, as far as the engines are concerned. Third thing, helicopters, you're talking about Kamo 226. We are partners in that also. With so we are partners in that, so it is not going out of hand for us. We are 50% partner in that, and also will be in if it fructifies, it comes in Tumkur. So we have already identified the place for doing that job. So we have one JV with the Russian helicopters and also one export, and both of them having put together 50%, and we are having a 50% partnership, and it's a joint venture called Indo-Russian Helicopters Limited, IRHL.
Correct, sir. Yeah.
Is through with them that it will come effective and when it comes. Secondly, your question was, will it cannibalize my orders on LUH? No. It is exclusive of each other. There was the initial requirement for 400 helicopters, out of which 100 was for LUH and 200 was for Kamo. In case the Kamo numbers come down, then LUH will increase. If the Kamo number remains the same, LUH numbers will continue to have 200 numbers. That's the minimum quantity that we are looking at it. Generally, it goes around 1.5 to 2 times more than this.
Okay. Fine. So any of these orders could plug in the gap of 5,000 or 6,000 crores which you have said. Am I right, sir?
No, not really. That's why we said there is a gap in the executable orders. It's not that.
Executable orders. Oh, okay.
Executable orders which can be executed in 22-23. So these are, even if it is placed today, it cannot be executed in 22-23.
Okay.
So, yeah, except the 12 LUH that order is in the pipeline for us to come in, that will definitely be there for 22-23 because we have taken procurement actions and production actions on that already. So 12 LUH definitely will come, but the 200 LUH what we are looking at, it will not come in that time period.
Okay. So one last question for me. On the LCA execution, do we have any penalty clause for that execution if there's a delay across?
Yes, of course. LD clause is there in all the programs that we have.
Okay. Fine, sir. Thanks a lot for answering the questions, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the last question. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Abhijit Mitra for his closing comments. The line for Mr. Abhijit Mitra has got disconnected. The management team, would you like to add any closing comments?
Yes. Thank you for the participation and active participation and the questions that were raised. We are hopeful that after the first half of the year, we continue to have the same growth as far as the second half is also concerned, and we meet the targets of the year. Thank you for joining us today, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of ICICI Securities, that concludes this conference call. We thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines. Thank you.